On Saturday the 25th of September, 161 of the world's great classic cars assembled at Brands Hatch Circuit in Kent for the start of the 1993 RAC Motorsports Association Euro Classic Run. Over the next 4 days, the cars were to clock up at least 550 route miles to their destination in Germany, the mighty Nürburgring race circuit. The engines ranged in size from a gargantuan 7,000 cc's down to a mere handful.
This is the smallest engine in the rally, and it's roughly half the size of the next biggest engines at 747 cc's. It's going to be working extremely hard going up the hills, particularly over the mountains towards the finish. And we're worried about braking coming down the hill because it's only got cable brakes. But we are capable of at least 35 miles an hour on the flat.
While some drivers were still busy making final adjustments, the others were queuing at the RAC control room to sign on, followed by the ritual scrutineering session. This was once owned by film producer Sir Alexander Korda. The Porsche 356 SC of Sir John Rogers.
No, I shan't flag it away. John Quenby's going to do that, Chief Executive. So I'm just going to sit in line. I start about 9 o'clock in the middle of the field. So hope the mist will have lifted a bit by then. It's a bit damp at the moment.
To be deemed a classic, the cars all have to be at least 20 years old, which makes this Sunbeam Tourer at 64 a classic in the grand manner. RAC Chief Executive John Quenby flagged away the first entrance at 8:30. The weather was cold and damp and was not to change much for 3 days. Brands Hatch Circuit started life in 1926 when it was part of Brands Hatch Farm and was used for cycle racing. Within 2 years, local motorcyclists had built a straight-line drag strip, which rapidly developed into a 3/4-mile circuit. In 1947, after wartime army occupation, the track was upgraded to allow 500cc Formula 3 cars to use it. It wasn't until 1954 that racing switched to clockwise rotation, and shortly afterwards, Brands Hatch was to boast the first ever permanent grandstand at a British racetrack. October 1956 saw the first Formula 1 race, which was won by Archie Scott Brown in a Works Connaught, a mark which is represented in the Euro Classic Run. Improvements continued over the years, and in 1960 the Grand Prix circuit was built, increasing the length of the track to 2.65 miles. The BBC invented rallycross here in 1963, and Brands Hatch hosted the first ever Formula Ford race in 1967. Modifications and general improvements continue to this day, and the demolition of the old pit area can be seen and heard in the background, soon to be replaced by a new modern complex. Austin Healey's, Jaguars, Sunbeams and MGs were well represented, plus a handful of Ferraris and Triumphs and a couple of Jensens. Most of the cars looking like they'd just rolled out of the showroom for the first time, a tribute to the dedication of their owners.
on, wait here. Go.
From Brands Hatch, the classic convoy made its way to Leeds Castle. Built on 2 islands in a lake formed by the River Len, the history of Leeds Castle goes back more than 860 years. It was originally a fortress, and over the years became home to many queens, including Queen Isabella of France. Henry VIII was a regular visitor and was much enamoured of the jousting tournament staged in his honour. The main building only dates from 1822 and is often used as a venue for maximum security meetings. The castle formed an ideal background to the procession of precious metal, from the sleek E-type Jaguar and the mighty 7-litre Corvette to the diminutive MG Midget and the Teutonic BMW CSL. The surrounding parkland was originally designed by Capability Brown and is now used by the golfing fraternity. With the ever-present RAC rescue team in attendance, our drivers went via Saltwood Castle to Liddon Circuit near Dover. A motorcycle meeting was in progress, but at the appointed time the 2-wheelers cleared the track to allow our cavalcade to take the stage. Liddon Circuit started operations in 1947 as a grass track venue. In the early 60s, a proper 3/4-mile circuit was laid, soon to be extended to 1 mile. Over the years, apart from the grass track racing, the circuit has played host to motocross, cycle racing, hot rods, banger racing, motorcycle, car and truck racing, and perhaps its most famous role is as the home of many of the televised rallycross meetings. But on this day, the surroundings echo to the exhausts of cars from an era when they had character and were often as individual as their owners. The driver of this 1950 Allard K2 won a standing ovation from the spectators for the exuberant way he threw the car into Devil's Elbow, a style of driving which was to continue on all of the circuits. And so it was goodbye England, as the cars loaded onto 3 separate ferries for the short trip across to Calais. It was the first real opportunity for the drivers and navigators to relax, meet the other teams, and swap anecdotes. And for the cameraman to put his camera back in its box for a while. Rumour has it that some even sampled the wares of the posh bar. Once on French soil, the Euro Classic run made its way to Derrick, where the multicoloured procession aroused much interest. Shortly afterwards, Lord Brocket found time for a cookie break.
This is what life is, mate.
And a discussion on sartorial elegance.
That is the way people should dress.
And look, the sun's even come out for us.
Then it was on to the first overnight stop at Le Touquet. At Le Touquet, there was a chance to sample a glass or three of wine and to try to ascertain why the brakes don't work. Also, we had the opportunity to hear Canon Lionel Webber's thoughts on the run so far.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. We've had our odd moments. I've got a speedo cable that seems to want to talk to me every inch of the way, but then I'd miss it when it stops. So yeah, we had a bit of oil problems, but nothing much. It's been an absolutely fabulous run. Lyddon was tremendous because there was a great atmosphere at Lyddon. All the bikers and everybody else there sort of stopped while all the classics went round. That was nice. And then coming into France is always brilliant, especially if you're driving a Jaguar. You know, the kids are all out shouting Jaguar, and so, you know, you sort of bathe in reflecting glory for a couple of minutes. You've won Le Mans and you're driving through. So it was a fabulous run. And the organisation, I just don't know how the RAC, has done it. We've all come in here, sort of parked out in numerical order. It's been superb, fabulous. So cheers. It's been very good indeed, mate, hasn't it, so far? So to God we finish.
The following morning, the cars assembled at the Palais de l'Europe for the restart. Here we see Vic Allen's 1932 Alvis TL 1260. The 1951 Javelin of Graham Berry. Roy Drudge's 1951 Healy Silverstone. Duncan Rabagliati's 1948 Connaught L2. The 1953 Jaguar C-Type. And the 1933 Talbot 105. With so many cars queuing for the restart, the parking area soon began to fill. At Montreuil-sur-Mer, a localised rain shower had just passed over as our convoy made its way through the town square to the cobbled streets of the Old Town on their way to Croissant-Tournois Circuit. This is Derrick Mcconnell's 1963 Daimler SP250, commonly but unofficially known as the Daimler Dart, and much loved by the police force at the time. Alan Ansted's 1959 Austin Healey Sprite, and the 1956 Buckler 90 of Bob Kersey. The bulge on the boot lid of this 1962 Austin Healey BT7 gives away the fact that this was once a works car. As David Croucher's 1934 Austin Ruby, affectionately known as Arthur, takes to the pit road, the 1966 Tatra of John and Mary Nichols is loudly overtaken by the 1961 Lotus Elite of David Lochspieser, a car which takes a starring role later in the film. Prix is a club circuit with a length of only 1.2 miles, but the many tight bends make it a very interesting circuit, but never more interesting than with a collection of cars such as this. To qualify as finishers, all drivers had to make at least one circuit of each track, but Prix in particular was the reason many personal mileages were higher than expected, as it was universally acknowledged as a popular choice of venue, and much enjoyment was had by all. Towards the end of the session, the sun finally made an appearance, but this proved to be short-lived as the next 24 miles to Arras was to be driven in torrential rain, the type that makes even modern windscreen wipers and demisting systems seem inadequate. On arrival at Arras, the cars were assembled in the square in front of the town hall. As all advertising people know, water on highly polished cars works wonders for photographic appeal. Not so water on the inside. This is the 1954 Allard P2 Safari of David Wixon. The local classic car club was also in attendance, swelling the ranks of desirable mobility. During the break in the rain, we were able to record more views on the event.
If you go off the main track off the motorway, you suddenly find this beautiful old city like you do in England. This is lovely, really. I mean, it's nice to enjoy it, really. I'm looking forward to have a beer now.
We found Prix racetrack very good. Excellent racetrack. Enjoyed every minute of that. A bit disappointed about the rain, but we've come through that without any itch, so been a good run.
It's raining, but we don't care. We've got the hats. We've got the hats. We've got the business.
She's doing all the driving.
No, that course was really good. Really tight. You nearly lost it on there, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
But he brought it back on the straight and narrow. No, it's been really good. Where are we off to next, co-pilot? I don't know. Where are we? Where are we now?
Where they were off to next was Avesnes-sur-Helpe. However, the camera crew were on their way to the circuit of Chimay in Belgium. Chimay is one of the last public road circuits still in use, and at 5.8 miles, it is also one of the longest. The first race was in 1926, and apart from the war years, has been used regularly ever since, the most notable race being the Grand Prix des Frontières. Originally, the circuit went close to the edge of Chimay town, but eventually this new link road and permanent pit complex was built to bypass the town.
We have just completed a 7-minute lap of Chimay, and we're really rather proud of that. Well done. Thanks for being there. See you later on.
Elsewhere on the circuit, derelict trackside buildings still exist.
Is the bar open, please?
Chimay is also known for its locally produced beer. Next year, another new link is due to be built, which will unfortunately cut out this picturesque section of the circuit. After leaving Chimay, the route took us down to the Meuse Valley and into Dinan, dominated by the citadel, high on the cliff top. Rain clouds were once again in attendance, but this time the threat was not carried out. After the overnight stop came the chance to check the cars over, ready for the next section to the small town of Dubai. Maps were checked, and spark plugs were found to be very hot. This is the 1951 AC Buckland of Bruce Sandeman Craik. Neil Wildey's 1952 Jaguar XK120. The razor-edge styling of Alan Corm's 1952 Triumph Mayflower, complete with nodding dog. Donald Cross's 1954 Lancia Appia. somebody's tank. The 32-mile section to Prix went without incident, and soon the square in this small town of cobbled streets and cafes was near to overflowing. Prix was once a fortified town with the River Ourthe forming a moat around it. In the 16th century, in order to allow the town to expand, the moat was blocked off, but the bridge still remains. Prix is the kind of town where one can just look, listen and enjoy. And so to Spa-Francorchamps, the mixture of public and private roads that is the home to the Belgian Grand Prix. The paddock, which normally dances to the tune of the mighty Formula One engines, now echoed to the sound of less powerful but no less interesting engines of the classic variety. For some, the hamburger stand was a major attraction, while others just couldn't wait to get onto the circuit. At Eau Rouge, we spoke to Michael Lim and Michael Southcombe, who were in charge of the last E-Type off the production line.
We met a lady at the bar last night who hasn't got a trip and hadn't made a single mistake in the entire rally. In the entire event. So it was. We did well. We were impressed because I made a couple of mistakes yesterday. Yeah. But at the point I made one, everybody else was going round and round. It's quite encouraging to find that he feels reassured that everybody else made the same mistake. Reassured. Everybody's going round and round.
This is the main straight as seen from Eau Rouge. This is the same section as seen from the driver's eye, or more accurately, from a camera mounted on the front of the bonnet. The road up and to the right is part of the new section and is only used on race days. We are now on the new Grand Prix section, which was opened in 1979. This 2-mile downhill link reduces the lap mileage from an unmanageable 8.8 miles down to just over 4. The original circuit was first used for motorcycles in 1921 and cars in the following year. And in the 1970s, Porsche 917s were averaging 160 miles an hour. At the far corner of the old circuit is the town of Stavelot, which houses the Circuit Museum, and this was the next checkpoint. Set in picturesque surroundings, the museum contains about 90 cars and motorcycles, many of which have been used on the circuit. Driving this one was obviously a hair-raising experience. After spending some time at the museum, our cavalcade started out on the next leg to the German town of Monschau. The first 6 miles used to be the first competitive section of the Liège-Rome-Liège rally. Monschau is a typical picture postcard town, with narrow cobbled streets and old buildings. These same streets also formed part of the Burgring Monschau and was used for an annual motorcycle race from 1948 to 1952. For obvious reasons, it was never used for car racing.
Damals war man sehr stolz auf seine Automatik. Es war die Zeit, wo man Automatik hinten auf dem Kofferraum geschrieben hat. Ich glaube, heute könnte man fast handgeschaltet draufschreiben, weil die Automatikfahrzeuge...
The local mayor was in attendance as the classic procession passed through. It was here we met Austin Healey 3000 aficionado Roger King and his co-driver.
Spa was absolutely amazing, just wide open, fast roads. Must be incredible taking a car around there really quickly under racing conditions.
But both the Belgian circuits we've been on have been fantastic for scenery.
Yeah.
They really are attractive circuits compared with the English tracks we're used to.
Very, very pretty, and such long sweeping bends, beautiful surfaces, and the scenery, as you say.
And it's the character of a proper closed road circuit.
Yeah.
The cafes along the side, the buildings so close to the track, they really do make it a splendid sight.
From Monschau, it was a mere 60 miles to the final checkpoint at Nürburgring.
It's been great, fantastic. Well done, everybody.
John Nichols, with a sentiment echoed by so many throughout the run. Hugh Mays holds aloft the trophy he won here at the Nürburgring many years ago. This was the first time the trophy had returned to the scene of the triumph.
Running in the normal form, I'm doing 7 miles to the gallon, I've just worked out, so I think I must have a hole in the tank. But it's going very well, apart from the fact only one instrument works, but it's Italian, what can you expect?
And Arthur makes it.
Team Arthur Egerharter! Hey David, I'm driving along.
With the run completed and medals honestly earned, the sunshine of the following morning heralded the opportunity to sample the delights of driving on the famous track itself. The usual checks were carried out, and the magicians of the RAC rescue team once again proved their worth, even carrying out a repair to our cameraman's tripod. Then the moment arrived. First to be sampled was the new 2.8-mile Formula One circuit, which was opened in 1984. Then the big one, the remaining 12.5 miles of the original 17.6-mile track. This is the famous carousel, where the track is banked in order to take the bend at high speed. The original track was completed in 1927 and was built for two reasons: to reduce the unemployment in the Eifel region by providing 2 years' work for nearly 2,000 people, and the provision of a test track for the German motor industry. The first race in 1927 was the German Grand Prix and took nearly 5 hours to run. A modern Formula One race is over in just under 2 hours. The circuit was improved over the years, but because of its length, safety was difficult to maintain, and the last German Grand Prix was held in 1976, the year of Niki Lauda's accident. And now, in true Hollywood tradition, here comes the car chase. From remarks overheard during the event, it appeared to be unanimous that the 1993 RAC MSA Euro Classic run was a resounding success. Next year's entry list will no doubt confirm that. But wouldn't it be nice if the whole run was in sunshine?